Hey, my name is Rowan Smith and I want to welcome you to the Training for Trekking podcast. Now, this is the world's very first podcast which is entirely dedicated to helping you train, prepare and conquer your upcoming hike, trek or mountain adventure. So once a week, I'm going to be giving you quality and practical information on the subjects of physical preparation for trekking, dealing with altitude and nutrition on the trail, so you can know everything you need to be doing to have the best chance of a safe, enjoyable and successful adventure. So now you know what you're in for, let's get into today's episode. Okay, hello guys. Today we are talking through one big mistake I often see from hikers, trekkers, backpackers and mountaineers when they're coming back from some type of injury or some type of flare up of pain. And this is something I see time and time again, and it really breaks my heart when I see it happening. So today I'm going to be exploring how you can avoid this mistake and make sure you return to the trail in the best way possible. So to start things off, I'm going to tell you a story. Now, this story is coming out of a conversation I was having with a bloke last week when I was on the phone. I've also heard this conversation, pretty much this story, 24 times over the last 8 months. So it's the type of thing where it's just so common in the hiking world. So basically this bloke, lifelong hiker, absolutely loves it. About 12 months ago, he went on a hike. He hurt his knee, ignored it for a while. Then after a few months after that, it kept on getting worse and worse. He eventually went to the physio and got diagnosed that he had, a relatively significant knee issue. So they were like, look, you've got this issue. We need to take you through a process to strengthen things up, to let this issue go down, and help mobilize a few bits and pieces because, you're living in pain, you're limping around, you can't even go hiking, and it's just not a good thing. So this bloke, he was like, all right, that makes sense. They went through about 3 months of training together with the physio, and they were going through some basic strength training, some clams and a few squats and things like that. They were doing a few stretches and they were gradually easing back into walking. And bit by bit, this guy was feeling like, okay, the pain's going away. I'm feeling a bit more comfortable. I'm not getting woken up at night. I can actually walk around and go up and down the stairs feeling pretty good. And I'm feeling all right. But this bloke also knew that hiking was a big part of his life, and he'd given the knee the rest for the last 3 months, and he was ready to get back on the trail. But he knew he had to ask his physio. So he went to his physio. He was like, look, I really want to get into hiking. I've got this 10-kilometer hike that's coming up with some friends. It's nothing too strenuous, got a few ups and downs, but I really want to do it. And the physio was like, look, you've been doing these exercises for the last few months. You're walking around fine. You're not really experiencing pain day to day. I think you're going to be fine. So this bloke went out on his hike. First half was all good. He was walking around, he was loving it, he was having a good time. About halfway through, he started noticing a bit of discomfort in the knee. And he was like, this isn't good. 3/4 through, it started to blow up. And he was like, oh, I'm in a really bad way. And he was limping around. By the end, he dragged himself to the end and he was just not in a good way. And it took about a week for it to go down. He went back to the physio and the physio was like, that's a problem. And no, we're going to have to take it a step back, and we're going to have to go back to the strength training and slowly build up this strength and build up this stability. And then it's going to be a few more months till you can actually get on the trail. Now, this is a story that I hear all the time. And it was a little bit paraphrased because it's almost like a parable, however you say that, that I hear it just all the time. And essentially the problem here is there is a massive gap when it comes to the point where someone is typically cleared from a rehab point of view, as cleared to live a normal life and return to normal exercise. There's a big gap between that and actually being ready to get on the trail and perform and do what you need to do and stay safe and comfortable when you're actually hiking. So many times I hear people get cleared for exercise. They're told, look, you're not in so much pain. You've been doing these exercises. You're walking around okay. So you're fine. You can go out and do what you want. But time and time again, I hear hikers say, look, I've done this. I've gone through this process and I'm still pulling up in pain. And I don't know if I can continue hiking because it's just this constant returning battle of me getting into pain. And in all honesty, if there wasn't for this situation, I'd probably be out of a job because this is what basically who I work with, probably 60% of the clientele that I work with on this exact story. And the unfortunate thing here is when it comes down to it, most physios, no matter how good they are, unless they're a hiker themselves or maybe a trail runner, most of the time they're not really 100% sure what the demands of hiking actually is. And they probably have in their head, they're thinking, look, this guy just needs to get out of a pain. He needs to be able to walk around and then he's going to be all right. But when it comes down to hiking, you and I know there are so many demands of hiking that go just beyond walking. There's the uneven terrain, so up, down, potholes, things sliding out from under you, taking really weird steps in weird directions. There's the massive inclines and descents, even on the smallest hikes that are always going to be uphill and downhill. Again, with things slipping out from under you, again, with, fatigue, and it does get tough. There's carrying things on your back, carrying, 5, 10, 15, 20 kilos, depending on what type of hiking you're doing. There's the extreme weather variables, like things get hot, things get cold, things get tricky. There's pure act of just hiking for all day or multiple days. And then there's so many other bits and pieces which make hiking unique, which makes hiking what we know and love. But it does make it very, very, very tricky when you're returning from a rehab journey. Because 9 times out of 10, even if you're cleared for exercise, you're probably not in the best physical position for you to get back on the trail. Now, does this mean anyone coming back from injury or coming back from a rehab journey shouldn't be hiking? Absolutely not. And I firmly believe that people, once they're out of pain, should be getting back to doing what they love as soon as they can. But you need to be smart here. Number one, you need to manage what you're doing with your hiking so you're not flaring yourself up. But number 2, you need to find some type of training that can fill the gap between when your rehab ends and when you're truly at the best possible position to perform on the trail. And not only perform and get through your day's worth of hiking, but be able to deal with a slip, stumble, or fall, be able to deal with extreme weather, be able to deal with something going wrong. And you need to fill this gap between rehab and performance. Because when it comes down to it, we know as hikers, things always go wrong. And there's no point in getting your body just ready for the best case scenario. You need to be ready for anything the trail may throw at it. So in this situation, if you're coming out of a rehab journey or an injury journey or whatever it may be, and you're like, well, I don't actually know what I need to do now. I've been cleared from the physio. What should I actually be doing? Well, here are a few bits and pieces that I highly, highly, highly recommend you get around. Now, a lot of it's going to sound familiar because I talk about it on the podcast all the time, but you really do need to make sure you're doing it. Now, number 1, you need to be doing progressive strength training. Now, no matter what type of injury, 95% of injuries out there, you're going to see some benefits from a structured, progressive strength training. But the issue I see from people coming out of a rehab journey is essentially in the first couple of months, they've been given from a physio, they'll be like, look, maybe do, 3 sets of 10 of this exercise with a band, and then 3 sets of 10 with this exercise, and then maybe do a few squats, maybe do a wall sit here and there. And that might be all well and good in that point. But as you get further along the journey, you cannot continue to repeat the exercises for months and months and months at a time. It's just not going to do anything for you. It may keep the pain at bay if it does flare up, but it's never going to get you to a point where you're going to be 100% confident and 100% resilient, or resilient enough, I should say, to be happy on the trail. So if your program looks like you're still doing 3 sets of 10 exercises with a band or 3 sets of 10 squats or whatever it may be, you need to think about progressing it. You need to either find the advice you need from a trusted professional, whether it's myself, whether it's a coach at a local gym or whatever it may be, or you need to reach out for help somewhere because you need to be progressing your strength training. Number 2, targeted mobility work. Now, if you've been doing the same 3 stretches for months and months and months already, more than likely you need to reassess what you're doing. Now, this is for 2 reasons. Number 1, if you've been doing that stretching and things have been progressing, there'll probably come a point where you don't need to do so much stretching in those areas anymore because your mobility is improving and you might be better off putting your focus into different areas. Alternatively, if you've been doing the same stretching for months and months and months and nothing has changed and your mobility is still exactly the same, well, that's a signal. And that's a clear sign that you need to approach it from a different angle. So whether it's doing different exercises, whether it's doing more advanced exercises, or when doing more of them or whatever it may be. But you need to be doing targeted mobility work, but more than likely it's not going to be exactly the same as you were doing previously. The next important thing you need to do to fill up this gap between rehab and performance is you really need to be introducing hiking specific conditioning in a controlled environment. Now, what I mean by this is you need to be reintroducing the body to the particular demands of hiking, but in a way that isn't just simply hitting the trail and just hoping for the best. Now, classic examples of this is if you're expecting to carry a pack on the trail, is I always get my clients doing just some loaded pack walking around the neighborhood. So it might be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, and progressively increase that weight. Because in that situation, we can control it. We're not doing outrageous distances. We can adapt the weights, and you're not going to be in the middle of nowhere if something goes wrong. The same thing goes for if you're expecting lots of elevation. In a controlled environment, you probably want to be progressively exposing yourself to ups and downs. So whether you're doing some hill intervals or some stair intervals or whatever it may be, and slowly and progressively exposing yourself to that. If you're aware that you're going to be sort of huffing and puffing and that's going to be a limiting factor, you want to be working on that in a controlled environment. So that is not so much of a concern when you're on the trail. And then when you can actually get out there, you can worry about what you need to worry about. And whatever other demands you're going to be working on, struggling with on the trail, you need to be exposing the body to that in a controlled way and bit by bit progressing that, because it's so important. And then finally, you need a gradual return to hiking. And when I say gradual, it needs to be gradual. Now, as I said before, once you get out of pain, I highly encourage people to get back out on the trail. But that doesn't mean jumping into a 20-kilometer hike or a 15-kilometer hike or a massive elevation hike. And that means in the first few ones you do, you're choosing distances and difficulties that you are 110% certain you're going to get through like it's nothing. So if you think you can do 10 kilometers, it's probably worthwhile starting off with 6 kilometers and then slowly building up with there. Because initially, the worst thing you can do is just go too hard, too soon, set yourself back. As you're building that strength, as you're building that mobility, as you're building that hiking specific conditioning, start off slow with your hiking, slowly build it up. And there will come a point, whether it's week 4, week 5, or week 6, it's always those weeks where you get excited and you're like, yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling ready. Let's absolutely pump it. I got a big hike in my sights. There's always a point where people jump up too far. So keep a track of it. Keep control with it and be smart with it. And if you stick with this process and if you're smart with it, building bit by bit, in the next 8 to 12 weeks after you're out of rehab, you can really do some phenomenal things for your body. And obviously everyone's injury is different. Everyone's rehab journey is different. That may be longer, that may be shorter, but it's a smart process to follow. It's the exact same process that I use with my clientele who are coming out of a rehab journey. It's the exact same process that I use with hikers who struggle with pain and aches and pains on the trail and just constantly in that cycle of pain, injury, and just feeling terrible about not being able to hike. This process does work and it is smart. And I'd highly recommend you have a think about that, because there is a gap between rehab and performance and you do need to fill it in. Now, if you do need help with this, obviously it is a very complicated subject. There's a lot that goes into it, and I've literally only grazed the surface today. If you do need help, come and find me in the Training for Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. Come in there, have a chat with me. We can message back and forth, have a talk about your situation. And if you do need extra help, we can always discuss the potential on coming on board one of my programs. But essentially, this situation, it is worth taking seriously, because there's no point in getting to the stage where you think you can hike, you end up hurting yourself, and you're back to square one. So please be smart. And if you've been struggling this for a while, please consider maybe it's time to make a change. So thank you so much for listening today, guys. I do hope you got a little bit out of it. As I said, if you want to find me, you can find me in the Training for Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. I'll leave the link for that in the show notes below. So have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.